Men believe they're safe when their enemies smile, until the dagger is already pressed against their ribs. That's where every downfall begins, not in war, but in what we tolerate. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 behaviors Machiavelli warned every ruler, every leader, and every human being never to tolerate. Because power isn't lost in one moment. It's eroded slowly by the poisons we permit. In his lifetime, Machiavelli watched kingdoms fall, generals vanish, and rulers weep over their crumbling thrones. What destroyed them wasn't always the enemy across the battlefield. It was the friend standing beside them, the one they allowed too close, too long. 1. Disloyalty. Disloyalty is the deadliest wound of all, because it strikes from within, where no armor can protect you. The enemy you can see is manageable. The one smiling in your company is the real danger. Machiavelli saw it again and again. Leaders who trusted the wrong people. They believed kind words, rewarded false loyalty, and ignored the warning signs. And when the test finally came, they found themselves surrounded not by allies, but by traitors waiting for the right moment to turn. Trust, he said, is rarer than gold. Once you spend it foolishly, you can never earn it back. So, don't believe in words, believe in proof. Loyalty isn't what people say when times are good. It's what they do when your power shakes. A man who hesitates to defend you today will betray you tomorrow. Disloyalty never arrives in a roar. It creeps in through small acts of selfishness, through silence, through the slow withdrawal of support. When you sense it, act fast. To keep a disloyal man near you is to hand your enemy a loaded weapon. 2. Cowardice. Cowardice in crisis is more dangerous than the enemy at your gates. A coward looks like an ally until the storm hits. They'll cheer you on in peace, boast of their loyalty in calm waters. But when danger appears, they vanish. Machiavelli said courage must be tested before it's trusted. Put your allies through small trials. See who hesitates when risk appears, who avoids responsibility, who waits for others to move first. These are the men who'll abandon you when the stakes rise. A coward spreads fear faster than any enemy. One man's retreat infects 10 others. Soon, your company of loyal men turns into a crowd of frightened individuals. The brave, in contrast, are quiet. They don't boast, they simply stand firm when the moment comes. That's how you separate loyalty from decoration, by observing who stands still when the fire starts. 3. Flattery. The sweetest words are often the most poisonous. Flattery without truth blinds you faster than any insult. Machiavelli warned that leaders surrounded by yes-men slowly lose their grip on reality. They become addicted to praise, deaf to criticism, and blind to danger. He watched rulers destroy themselves not because their enemies deceived them, but because their followers did. Gently, with smiles and soft voices. The flatterer is never loyal. He's a parasite. His goal is not your strength, it's his survival. He'll praise your victories until you stop questioning your own judgment. He'll agree with your worst ideas because your blindness protects him. And when your power falters, he'll vanish or switch sides entirely. That's why Machiavelli advised, value the one who wounds you with honesty over the one who heals you with lies. The loyal advisor is often the one who risks your anger to tell you what you don't want to hear. 4. Indecision. Indecision is surrender disguised as thought. It kills faster than any enemy blade because it steals opportunity while you debate it. Machiavelli saw rulers who had strength, armies, and intelligence, but lacked the nerve to decide. They hesitated, waiting for perfect clarity, and in doing so, lost everything. Fortune, he said, favors the bold, not the one who waits. A flawed decision can be corrected. No decision cannot. Because when you delay, you give the initiative to your enemies. You tell the world you fear responsibility, and once they see that, they'll use it against you. Even your allies begin to doubt you when you hesitate. Confidence spreads, but so does fear. A hesitant leader infects his followers with uncertainty, and when that spreads, loyalty fades. Remember, it's better to act imperfectly than to stand frozen in endless thought. The man who moves shapes the world. The man who waits is shaped by it. 5. Breaking oaths. Lightly. An oath is not just a promise, it's the currency of trust. Break it carelessly, and you destroy your credit forever. Machiavelli never denied that deception has its place. Sometimes, survival demands it. But he warned that deceit without necessity is ruin. To betray a vow for a trivial gain is to trade your stability for dust. A ruler who breaks his word too often becomes known for it, and once your name becomes synonymous with betrayal, no one will stand beside you when it matters most. A wise man breaks his word only when survival demands it, and even then, cloaks the act in necessity, not greed. Because when you burn bridges too easily, you eventually find yourself stranded, surrounded by the ghosts of your own broken promises. 6. Neglecting appearances. Power isn't just about what you are, it's about what people believe you are. Machiavelli saw rulers crumble not because they lacked skill or strength, but because they neglected how they appeared. They forgot that people judge more by sight than by truth. He wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand," meaning, perception is stronger than reality. When a ruler looked disordered, dressed carelessly, spoke weakly, or tolerated chaos in his court, people began to doubt his strength, and doubt is contagious. A leader's appearance must project control, even when chaos brews behind the scenes. Because image precedes reputation, and reputation precedes power. Once your image decays, your authority collapses soon after. Machiavelli understood that most people will never know your true intentions, your plans, or your heart. They only see the version of you that you allow them to see. And that version shapes how they treat you. So guard your appearance like a weapon. Speak with certainty, even when uncertain. Walk with poise, even when tired. Present yourself as calm, unshaken, unbreakable, especially when things fall apart. Because when you seem steady, others hold their fear, but when you seem weak, they begin to prepare your replacement. Appearance isn't vanity. It's strategy. Your tone, your composure, your consistency, these become your armor. When the enemy studies you and sees no hesitation, they assume strength. When allies look to you and see clarity, they lend loyalty. Neglect this, and you invite whispers. Whispers that turn into stories. Stories that turn into judgment. And judgment that turns into rebellion. Machiavelli would tell you, even when you are uncertain, act as though you are certain. Because power is perception, and perception decides the war before the first arrow flies. Tolerating corruption. Corruption isn't a thief that breaks down your gates. It's the rot that grows quietly inside your walls. A dishonest minister, a greedy officer, a servant who cuts corners. These are termites in the beams of your state, and if you don't crush them early, your foundation collapses. Machiavelli saw kingdoms decay not from invasion, but from decay within. He warned that once corruption takes root, it never remains small. It spreads because silence is permission. Maybe the first act of corruption is small. A friend bends the rules. An ally takes a little more than he should. You think it's harmless. You tell yourself it's not worth the trouble. But in that hesitation, rot begins to multiply. Others see it go unpunished, and they follow. Loyalty turns to greed. Justice bends for profit. And soon you are surrounded by men who serve themselves while pretending to serve you. A ruler who tolerates corruption for the sake of comfort, friendship, or temporary peace signs his own death warrant. The fortress he believes is solid is already hollow. And when crisis comes, the gears of his empire grind to a stop, because every mechanism has been sold for gold. Machiavelli's advice is merciless but clear. Do not pity the corrupt, destroy them. Because the moment you start excusing one betrayal, you invite 10 more. He knew that justice, once compromised, can't be half restored. It's like a mirror. Once cracked, it reflects nothing clearly again. So be vigilant. Be feared for your fairness, not loved for your leniency. And when corruption shows its face, even in a friend, cut it off like a diseased limb. The final lesson, and there you have it. The 7 behaviors no leader, no warrior, no ordinary person should ever tolerate. Disloyalty, cowardice, flattery, indecision, breaking oaths, neglecting appearances, and corruption. Machiavelli didn't list these as theories. He witnessed them destroy real empires. He saw that a ruler's downfall doesn't come from weakness alone. It comes from what he allows. From every betrayal he excuses, every coward he forgives, every lie he believes, every hesitation he justifies, every oath he breaks, every image he neglects, every corruption he overlooks. You don't fall because the world is cruel. You fall because you tolerated what should have been crushed. The lesson is simple but brutal. Power is not maintained by kindness. It's maintained by vigilance. You don't need to be cruel, but you must be clear. You don't need to be feared, but you must be respected. And respect is built by the boundaries you enforce, not the compassion you explain. A true ruler, Machiavelli said, must be both fox and lion. Cunning enough to see the traps, and strong enough to terrify the wolves. That balance intellect and force, patience and action, mercy and discipline. That's the art of survival in a world built on human weakness. So remember, fortune favors the bold, but she never favors the careless. You don't lose everything at once. You lose it piece by piece. Every time you let something slide. Every time you look away, every time you tell yourself it's not worth the fight. That's how empires fall. That's how men lose their respect. And that's how power fades not by the sword, but by the silence of those who know better and still choose to tolerate the intolerable. There's a reason Machiavelli's lessons still feel alive centuries later. It's because they aren't just about kings or states. They're about us. Every kingdom that falls looks different, but the weakness that caused it is always the same. Tolerance of poison. Let's go deeper. These 7 warnings don't just apply to rulers. They apply to you, your relationships, your work, your ambition, your circle. Because in every sphere of life, you are either governing your world or being governed by it. 1. The slow death of trust. Disloyalty doesn't always come as betrayal. It begins as neglect. A friend who suddenly goes quiet when you need defense. A colleague who takes credit for your effort. A partner who lets others speak ill of you without correction. They all seem small, but that's how rot begins small. Silent, almost invisible. Machiavelli would tell you, don't wait for the knife to pierce you before calling it treachery. He'd say, The one who hesitates to defend you today will be the one who sells you tomorrow. So you test loyalty not with words, but with friction. See who stands with you when your status brings no reward. See who protects you when there's nothing in it for them. Those are the few who belong in your inner circle. The rest, let them drift away quietly. Because a man surrounded by false loyalty isn't leading an army. He's walking through a minefield, too. The coward's contagion. You can recover from defeat, but not from fear that spreads through your own ranks. Machiavelli compared fear to a plague. One coward can infect 10 brave men simply by hesitating at the wrong moment. That's why he insisted, you test courage early. Don't wait until the storm to find out who can swim. Place people in situations that reveal their instincts. Watch who looks for excuses, who freezes, who hides behind diplomacy. A coward is not just useless, he's dangerous. Because when courage breaks, order collapses. If one man flees, another follows, and soon, your once loyal company becomes a mob of frightened survivors. A true leader, Machiavelli said, never tolerates fear disguised as caution. He knows that hesitation is contagious, but so is composure. And if you remain calm when others panic, your steadiness becomes the shield they gather behind. So ask yourself, when chaos comes, will you be the source of certainty or the source of contagion? 3. The poison of praise. If cowardice weakens your defenses, flattery blinds your vision. The flatterer is more dangerous than the traitor, because the traitor's dagger can only reach your back, but the flatterer poisons your mind. Machiavelli observed that rulers surrounded by agreeable voices lose touch with reality. They start mistaking admiration for truth, comfort for wisdom, and by the time they realize they've been deceived, it's already too late. The damage isn't to their image, it's to their judgment. He wrote that flattery makes men deaf to unpleasant truth, and when you stop hearing truth, you begin ruling a fantasy. The antidote? Seek those who disagree with you. Invite the man who challenges your thinking, not the one who mirrors it. Reward honesty, not obedience. Because the one who dares to wound your ego with truth is the one protecting your survival. The flatterer's smile may be warm, but his loyalty is rented. And when your fortunes change, his rent expires. 4. The illusion of patience. Indecision often disguises itself as wisdom. I'm thinking it through, you tell yourself. I'll wait for clarity. But clarity doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who act. Machiavelli despised hesitation. He said, "Fortune favors the bold." To him, delay was not safety, it was decay. Because while you weigh your options, others are already acting on theirs. Every moment of indecision silently transfers power from you to someone else. When your followers see hesitation, they start doubting your command. When your rivals see hesitation, they start setting traps. He saw that indecisive rulers rarely fell to war. They fell to time. They waited for certainty until their opportunities died. So be decisive, not reckless, but decisive. A wrong move can be repaired. A missed move cannot. Your enemies will always try to slow you down with questions, distractions, endless analysis. Their goal is simple: to drown your will in doubt. Don't let them. Act fast. Adjust later. Because the man who decides quickly forces events to adapt to him. The man who waits is forced to adapt to events. 5. The erosion of honor. When a man breaks his word too easily, he doesn't just destroy others' trust, he destroys his own authority. An oath, Machiavelli said, is the backbone of command. Once people believe your promises mean nothing, they stop following your orders even before you speak them. Now, Machiavelli wasn't naive. He knew that sometimes deception is necessary when survival or strategy demands it. But he made a vital distinction. Deception in defense of your state is wisdom. Deception for greed is suicide. If you lie without purpose, betray without cause, or manipulate without strategy, you erode the very foundation you stand on. Your reputation becomes a warning, not a weapon. So keep your word when you can, but when you can't, make sure it's for the preservation of your state, not your ego. And when you must break an oath, cloak it in necessity, not pride. Because once your reputation turns to dust, no amount of strength can rebuild it. 6. The decay of image power doesn't just live in your actions, it lives in the impression your actions create. Machiavelli understood that leadership is as much theater as it is strategy. The people you lead don't follow your mind. They follow your posture, your tone, your composure. He wrote that men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand. In other words, people don't care about your intentions, they care about how you appear. He watched rulers fall not because they lost battles, but because they lost presence. They slouched when they should have stood tall. They let rumors grow unchecked. They allowed small cracks in their image to widen into public perception. And perception, once poisoned, is nearly impossible to clean. Machiavelli's advice? Never appear ordinary. Even if you are uncertain, appear steady. Even when you bleed, appear unhurt. The crowd doesn't need to know your fear. They need to see your resolve. A careless appearance gives permission for others to doubt you. When you act like a man in command, people obey you out of instinct. But the moment you act uncertain, they sense weakness, and weakness in image breeds chaos in structure. He once observed that a commander's posture alone can turn defeat into discipline. Soldiers fight harder when they see composure on their leader's face. The illusion of strength often creates real strength, and that's the hidden law Machiavelli lived by. Your appearance becomes your weapon. He warned that neglecting appearances allows your enemies to write your story for you. If you don't project control, they'll project your collapse. So shape perception before others do. Speak clearly. Move deliberately. Control your tone, your words, your silence. Never let gossip define you. Never let a careless image become your identity. Because power doesn't crumble from truth. It crumbles from perception. And if you don't master the illusion will master you. 7. The slow poison of corruption. If neglecting appearance weakens your armor, corruption rots your foundation. Corruption isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It whispers, bargains, rationalizes. It begins with a small compromise that feels justified. Machiavelli saw that the most dangerous threat to a ruler doesn't come from his enemies, but from within his own walls, from the people he protects and the habits he excuses. A dishonest advisor, a soldier who steals a little, a friend who bends rules for convenience. You tell yourself it's harmless. You tell yourself they've earned your forgiveness. But each small tolerance is a crack in the wall. And corruption loves cracks. It spreads faster than loyalty because it feeds on self-interest. One man cheats for gold, another cheats to protect the first, and before long, dishonor becomes the new order. Machiavelli warned that once corruption grows, it becomes nearly impossible to reverse. Because the moment people see wrongdoing go unpunished, they take it as permission. Your authority erodes not by attack, but by imitation. He wrote, "The people lose faith when they see the law bent for the privileged. When the powerful are left untouched, the loyal start to question why they should remain loyal at all. And when that happens, discipline dies, and with it, your stability. So, he demanded constant vigilance. Corruption, he said, must be cut off at the root, even if the guilty man is your friend, even if punishing him costs you peace, because corruption that goes unpunished today will devour your kingdom tomorrow. To rule or even to live with integrity, you must hold yourself and your circle to the same standard. The dishonest man in your ranks is more dangerous than the honest enemy at your gates. It takes courage to cleanse corruption, because it means confronting people you love. But failure to do so costs far more. It costs the respect that sustains you. Machiavelli saw this truth carved in history. Every empire that tolerated rotted from within. The anatomy of downfall. At the end of his warning, Machiavelli didn't speak like a philosopher. He spoke like a surgeon. He cut straight to the root. Those who allow poison to spread within their state, within their circle, or within themselves, will perish not from war, but from neglect. That's how he saw power, not as something gained once and held forever, but as something that must be guarded daily, like a flame. And the moment you stop guarding it, when you start tolerating disloyalty, cowardice, flattery, indecision, broken promises, weak appearances, or corruption, the flame dies quietly in your hands. Most people lose power not because they were defeated, but because they were comfortable, because they confused mercy with weakness, because they believed the lie that good intentions would protect them from the consequences of poor judgment. Machiavelli's world was brutal, but his wisdom was merciful. He didn't tell you to become cruel. He told you to become conscious, to open your eyes to the truths most people are too afraid to face. Power, respect, and survival, they all belong to those who dare to see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. And that's the final lesson. It's not fate that destroys men. It's tolerance. Machiavelli understood that ruin never begins with rebellion. It begins with tolerance. Every fallen kingdom starts with a single decision to overlook what should have been cut away. Every weak man was once a strong one who excused too much. These 7 warnings were not written for princes alone. They are for anyone who wishes to rule themselves. Because power begins within. 1. Disloyalty to yourself. Before others betray you, you betray yourself. You break the promises you made in silence. You say you'll change, then repeat the same mistake. You sense danger, yet stay anyway. That is the first rot, self-disloyalty. And Machiavelli would call it the seed of collapse. He'd say, "He who cannot govern himself cannot govern anything." Keep your word to yourself as if it were a royal decree. Each promise honored builds the armor of your authority. Each broken one weakens it too. The coward within cowardice hides behind patience. You call it timing, planning, being cautious, but what you really mean is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of change. Machiavelli had no mercy for that. He said fortune is a woman who favors the bold. If you wait too long, she belongs to another. Stop asking if the moment is right. Make it right by moving. The man who acts creates his own weather. The one who waits is ruled by the storms of others. 3. The flatterer in your mind. You already know him. The inner voice that comforts instead of challenges. It tells you you're doing enough. That effort can wait, that your potential is permanent. Machiavelli would call that voice a traitor, because it praises you into mediocrity. He'd tell you to distrust praise that doesn't demand growth. Trade comfort for confrontation. Seek truth that stings. It's the only kind that sharpens. The mind that flatters itself will soon kneel to those who don't. 4. The disease of indecision. Indecision isn't wisdom. It's surrender in slow motion. You keep your options open until time closes them for you. Machiavelli despised hesitation. He wrote that fortune respects those who strike, not those who study. A wrong move can be corrected. Hesitation cannot. When you act, the world bends. When you wait, it hardens against you. Decide quickly, adjust later. The longer you deliberate, the less you command. 5. The habit of breaking your own word. A man's promise is a coin. Spend it carelessly, and it loses value. Every tomorrow you don't honor. Every never again you repeat. Devalues your currency of trust. Machiavelli wasn't moral, he was practical. He'd say, "Speak little, deliver precisely. Keep your commitment sacred, even when no one is watching, because reputation begins in the dark, long before the crowd sees it." 6. Neglecting your own image. Your appearance, your tone, your silence. These are your banners in the eyes of others. You might believe authenticity means showing weakness, but Machiavelli warned that perception decides before truth ever arrives. Project calm even in chaos. Speak less, stand taller, move slower. The world reads posture before principle. Appear disciplined until you become it, because no one follows the man who looks lost, even if his intentions are pure. 7. The corruption of compromise. Corruption doesn't begin with greed. It begins with the first small excuse. It's not a big deal. Just this once. No one will notice. That's how kingdoms fall from within, by the soft decay of standards. Machiavelli would tell you, punish your smallest weakness before it grows teeth. The moment you stop enforcing your own law, you teach your instincts that rebellion has no cost. Integrity must be guarded like a fortress, even against yourself. The final rule. In the end, all 7 poisons reduce to one lesson. Never tolerate what weakens you. Disloyalty, fear, flattery, hesitation, broken promises, carelessness, corruption, each one erodes your authority, one quiet act at a time. Power isn't maintained by force. It's preserved by vigilance, by watching the cracks before they split, by cutting rot before it spreads. Machiavelli's genius was not cruelty, it was clarity. He didn't teach you to be ruthless toward others, but toward your own weakness. So ask yourself, which poison are you allowing to stay? Which habit have you excused so long it now calls itself you? Because the moment you stop tolerating weakness, you become dangerous. Not cruel, not loud, just undeniable. And that, Machiavelli would say, is how every empire, inner or outer, is born again.